What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ask a CISSP. So this is the Thursday episode of the Other Side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. Speaking of which, on this episode, I have the pleasure of sitting down with Charles Rush. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. How you doing today?
Oh man, I can't complain. So always a good day, right? To be able to connect with somebody who we've talked back and forth on LinkedIn. You've invited me to the Blacks in Cyber mentor session where I was able to, speak with them and give them advice and connect with them. So greatly appreciated. And now we get to sit down and talk to you about your business ventures and how you broke into cybersecurity. You are the CEO and founder of RushIT LLC. So I wanted to talk to you about your business, how you've been self-employed for many years. Super jealous. Not to my employer that though, in case they're listening. And just how you're in the community, mentoring, sharing, and all that good stuff. So we'll start from the beginning, right? So where are you from and how did you get into information technology and cybersecurity?
Sure. I'm from upstate New York, from Albany. And really what's funny is some people kind of started pinging me, said, you haven't really told your story publicly that many times. And a lot of people don't know it. And they said, you need to put it down on paper. So we're working on putting together a little bit of a book, hopefully be done by the end of this year. And it's going to be too much of one, not enough of the other. The first act in there is called From Birth Till Boxing. And that's kind of significant for me because that's actually was like boxing was the beginning of my IT career. I was not the best student in high school. I was in that part of the class that made the top half of the class possible. So,
Gotcha.
I was not an A student. I went out down to North Carolina A&T, and I had a blast, a lot of fun. Student center was cool, playing cards was fun, going out to the clubs, had a great time. But I probably didn't spend as much time learning as I should. And self-reflection and looking back, I wasn't ready. All of us mature at different times, at different stages. And I think that's worth saying because I hear a lot of people coming up getting frustrated as to, I don't have this yet. I haven't done that yet. I don't know how to do this. Like, it's going to come in your time. When you're ready to absorb and step into those roles and those positions and those new sections of your life, like, you're going to be there and you're going to show up for them as long as you want to. Everybody out there, it's coming, keep pushing. You're going to make it. Back to, after college, I went home, was working jobs and, I always had an affinity with computers, even going back to when I was little. And I met this guy, Rob, at the boxing gym. And, we were sparring partners for a couple of times, hit it off, talked a little bit. And Rob was the foreman for a crew and this is going to date me a lot. So be nice, folks. And the crew was putting in the data cabling for the first wave of Cisco academies.
Wow. Okay.
We going way back there. Like, people didn't even know what a router was or we weren't, all the vernacular that we use today was not commonplace. And so, but that was my intro. And, back then he said, yeah, this job's paying a state rate. And I think that was something like $28 an hour, which was ridiculous for making money way back then,
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done that stuff. Don't worry about it. We're going to teach you. Got me in there, learned about Cat5 cables, pinouts and all those sort of things, and was having a blast doing it. And one day these folks came in, and I was filthy that day. I had actually been crawling up in the ceiling. So I had insulation and stuff all over me. And it's funny that I remember this, but these folks came in, they had on polo shirts, khaki pants, nice crease in them. And I see them, putting the cabinet up on the wall. I was like, what are you guys doing? What's all that? They're like, oh, we're here installing the routers and the switches for the network. It's like, what's that for? It's like, that's what the computers talk to. Huh. It's like, you have to go to school for that? And they said, yeah. This is showing another sign of the times. There was one school in Albany that taught computers.
Wow.
That was not a college or a university or
right.
Or something like that. And they said, you go here, tell me you want to learn about Cisco and tell me you want to learn about Microsoft. And that's what I did. And fast forward, But on the IT side, I got to work places like Global Crossing. Us here in Baltimore used to have PSI Net Stadium. Well, they had a knock in Albany and worked in there for a little bit. And that was the start of my career in IT. Fast forward a bunch of years in IT, as a network engineer, project manager, we got to doing, I was working on a trading floor, supporting them, and they were starting to wind down here in Baltimore. And it was kind of like, okay, if I want to stay with the bank, I got to find something else to do. And I was lucky enough that there was an opening on the security team doing firewall administration. They sent me to school for about 3-4 weeks, learned all I could about checkpoint and crossbeam, and that was the start of my cybersecurity career.
That's awesome. I think you bring up a lot of really good points. There's some stuff in there as well that I feel as though those up and coming into IT and cyber are getting kind of robbed, right? Of having that background or that experience, because it feels like they have to have a CISSP coming out the womb now, right? As opposed to growing into it, having the passion or discovering something new, right? You went from running cable to installation to administration engineering, right? Natural progression. Like you got to, experience things as technology came online. I just feel like they're going to get that to a certain extent because, like, who knows what technology exists by the time we are, old folk. But it just feels like it's not as organic as it used to be. So when you went to North Carolina A&T, what was your field of study at that time?
I had a few of them, but I started off as a mechanical engineer.
Okay.
Cal 2 kicked my butt and turned me into a history major. And then I was just like, I kind of lost the passion and the drive, and it was a slow fizzle out. And, went back home after that.
Got you. No, I mean, hey, listen, I tell people all the time I'm a computer science dropout. I just didn't have the discipline or the drive to get, like you said, past Calc 2, right? Like, so Calc 1 kicked my butt, and then Calc 2 kicked my butt twice. And then I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And I became a psychology major. So I was like, no, it's not for me. But our kids are like math whizzes. I actually have a little cousin. We were talking we had a family wedding, and he was telling me he was going out to North Carolina A&T, and his field of study was going to be IT with concentration in cybersecurity. So I was like, okay, that's what I'm talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to get his information so you can tell him where to stay away from down in North Carolina A&T.
Well, it's changed a lot since I was there. When I was there in the 90s, they still had a lot of furniture and things from back when Jesse Jackson was a student.
Wow. Okay.
They weren't a well-funded institution. Things have changed, and the lands are a lot better. The dorms are nice. It's a great place to be. It still has the same historical significance. So if you're out there and you're trying to choose a school, the HSBUs are definitely on the map now. There's a lot of things you can learn from them, a lot of experiences you're going to get. One thing that I can't, I wouldn't trade for anything is coming from the north. And, and granted, Albany was a pretty integrated town, as I've gotten older and been more places as far as, all different types of people being there. I didn't really have that, super Black experience. I went to a military high school, graduated 50 kids in our senior class. So that tells you how small it was. Of those 50, was kind of unusual. It was probably 13, 14 of us were minorities, and of that, maybe 3 were Black. So,
Okay.
there
Right.
was not a lot of Black people around. Most of my, interaction with Black people was like in the neighborhood, going out playing sports and, doing that sort of stuff. So being at A&T and being surrounded by Black people, like finally was like, whoa, this is cool, man. Like
Right.
where have you all been all this time? And, great experience, still talk to those guys on occasion, like to this day. So, definitely, a positive outcome. Even though I didn't get my piece of paper from there, I walked away with a lot of other things that were just as important.
Absolutely. And then we have similar geographical background, right? Like you're from Albany, I'm from Buffalo. Go Bills, of course. But yeah, the move from, like you said, going from Buffalo's West New York. You guys are upstate New York. But if you're from New York, like I talked to somebody the other day, everybody is, if you're not in the city, then you're in the sticks, or you're in South Canada or
Mhm.
something like that, right? Like everybody has their own opinion about the geographical areas of New York. Like the Cyber Coffee Hour, the 2 gentlemen from there, both from Mount Vernon. So it's always a good conversation as well. So it's a lot of tech in that area, but a lot of us do settle further down into the south, or the southeast, or we go west, right? That's usually where it seems to be tech is blowing up. So when I looked through your bio, I saw a lot of interesting companies that are no longer around, right? Like there's like Wachovia. I was like, I remember Wachovia. They got gobbled up by, I think Wells Fargo took them in the, as people were picking up pieces after the meltdown that we had in the financial crisis. So going from financial services, did you go into, like, what was the next firm that you worked for? Was it still in financial services or was it in a different space?
It was still financial services. So you mentioned Wachovia. I actually started off, it was First Union, then the bank changed to Wachovia.
Okay.
It got bought out by Wells Fargo. And then that's when they actually caught up with me and I got caught into that merger and was laid off. Did some work with a group called First Data after that. Still a lot of firewall security administration type stuff.
Gotcha.
That was cybersecurity back then. And then, from First Data, I think I came back and I landed at T. Rowe Price. And I believe T. Rowe Price was kind of the end of my financial services streak there. And from T. Rowe Price, I started doing the government contracting thing.
Gotcha.
Did some work at Bureau of Labor Statistics, was there for a good bit of time. Gosh, I can't even think of all the places I was after that. Yeah, so from Bureau of Labor Statistics, came into Center Medicaid, Medicare, did some stuff with Dell and
Okay.
as a professional services for hospitals in the area, those sort of things. It's been a good run and got to see a lot of things. But one of the best things that I like about IT is that you can kind of go into a whole bunch of different industries, but you're still doing the same job, right? So like I got to walk into a hospital and like see things that the general public doesn't. Like saw the operating room, saw things in the operating room I wish I hadn't seen, that's not my cup of tea. But one place it actually had a network closet behind there, and you would not believe the amount of technology that goes into a hospital and the difficulties in putting it in there with all the electromagnetic equipment, the lead walls, the X-ray
Right.
over the place. It's really an interesting place, and they rely upon these, all this tech real heavily. So that was kind of fun. And it was a lot different than just doing like endpoint computers and backbone. And so got to get a little bit closer and see like the impact that IT was having on people's lives, which was cool.
Absolutely. And again, you got to see the evolution, right? Like back in that time, like you said, like firewalls and ports and protocols, access lists, that was information security, which became cybersecurity, right? And then I remember like there was this convergence, right? Like we had, because I wasn't a firewall guy, I was called cyber transport, so I was a switching router guy, and then in front of me worked the firewall guys. So I would ask them for like, hey, what'd you see on the TCP dump? Or, what ports and protocols are open, what ports are open, and things like that. And that kind of all meshed together because I remember the Palo Altos came in and they were like, hey, we want, a handful of the firewall guys to come over to the cyber team and then vice versa. Because now we have to cross discipline because it's, one device doing both jobs. So no, that's super interesting. And again, it's stuff that won't because then we went from that to SD-WAN, right? So it's kind of like it was just all these jumps and now, your phone is a supercomputer, right? So
Pretty
these kids
much.
are missing all this, technology as it evolves.
And I don't want to say I feel bad for them, but I hope that, they're also able to enjoy like the same type of exposure that we did with learning some of the basics and working our way up. One thing that I learned is that that's where the innovation comes from. There's a lot of people that, they might skip over getting a wide breadth of IT knowledge and they get very deep in one area very
Right.
quickly. And you might get extremely good at doing that one thing, but chances are you're not going to be innovative in that area because you surrounded yourself with a lot of people that think and process and do stuff in a similar way to what you do.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start getting a little bit of Windows, a little bit of Unix, a little bit of software development, a little bit of cloud, a little bit of DevOps, this and that, you look at things with different eyes, and you see things that others don't because you haven't been taught to not see things or to say that something is not possible or you can't do it this way. And so you're still able to come up with new ideas and new ways of making things better. And you jump out and you say, well, let's do this. And at first people look at you like you're crazy, like, how the heck did you come up with that idea? And then if you're in a place that's progressive, you'll have some people sit back and say, you know what? I never thought about it that way.
Right,
We've
exactly.
always done it this other way. Let's give that a try. All of a sudden you're a superstar now.
And that's what I hope for this new AI future, right? Because they're like, oh, it's going to take our jobs, it's going to replace us, which to a certain extent it is, but not because of it being superior to us. It's being kind of used as an excuse, right, to reduce headcount.
Hmm.
So I think once all of this churn and uh, debating back and forth and opening and closing the data centers, I think when it settles, those of us who have experience prior to the AI I don't know, wars, so to speak, will be able to take it and run with it, right? Like that'll be
Hmm.
the next innovators and tool creators. Hopefully, it'll be a lot of small businesses will pop up because of it
Oh, absolutely. We're going to see
due to
that
that change.
explosion just like we did with the internet, back in the early 2000s with AI. We're seeing it already, and what's amazing is how fast it's happening.
Right,
We were getting years out of companies in the internet boom. We're getting like months out of companies, now with AI, with the idea being innovative and then being old, so
right.
quickly. So it's a totally different landscape. And the skill set that you're going to need to not just survive, but excel is not necessarily technical, but it's being able to problem solve and think, if you can problem solve and think, you're gonna do very well in this new space because you just getting better tools to help you do those things even better and faster. They're not crutches, they're enablers. And
Yes,
so they're not taking jobs away, but a lot of it is going to be creating jobs. It's going to be different jobs. And a lot of people, they get stuck and used to doing, I've been doing, these things for so long. Well, you know what? Before it was, I was delivering mail in a cart all around, an office building. And then email came, we're going to put the post office out of business. They're still here. They had to evolve and change. And as long as people are willing to do some of that, they're going to be perfectly fine as things go forward.
yeah. I think you bring up a good point. I always bring up the example of the guy who created the pet rock, and I think this is still true. But when I first started telling the story, right, he created pet rock was already genius, right, to trick people or to convince people to buy rocks, right?
Hmm.
But he's also the guy who did the mood ring, and then he took the technology from the mood ring and put it to the copper top tester, right? So like that whole squeezing the battery to see how much juice is in it. Like this is just a person who just continues to innovate,
Hmm.
like taking new ideas and entering new and emerging markets. So I think the same thing will be possible, especially at the speed of AI. So at least that's my hope, right? It's not we don't go into a Terminator 2 type situation. So with Skynet. So let's pivot into you starting your own business. So what inspired you to decide, hey, I'm going to create my own business, and then I'm going to, not only have the courage to do that, but then also be a mentor and all the other initiatives you have on top of that.
Sure. With creating my own business, it was always something I wanted to do and didn't know how for a long time. At one point in time, I probably read like every single real estate book that there was out there, but was scared to buy a house and go do it myself, And back then, the barrier to entry of a lot of things was a lot higher than it is now. A lot of people don't realize, go back early 2000s, you had to have like $5,000 to be able to open up a stock trading account. So it wasn't readily available to you to go out and be an investor and to do those sort of things. The way you can just jump out there and download Robinhood and you're off and running, or buy crypto.com, whatever. Today, the entrance to being able to generate your own wealth was a lot harder. Now, once you were in it, I think things might have been a little bit easier to maintain and sustain once you were there. But it was a very elite group that held in the knowledge of how to get there and what to do with it once you were in it. Books. You had to have access to the books. The books weren't everywhere. It wasn't go to your computer and pop up a browser. You had to go to the
Right.
library, the bookstore. We would spend hours upon hours in Barnes and Noble, sitting there in the coffee shop. Like, they're hard to find now. Those places used to be ginormous and now they're small. And that's just in the evolution of where the information has moved off of paper to electronic. But with me and getting into entrepreneurship, I got an opportunity to do some subcontracting for a friend of mine, and started off as a part-time thing. It grew and grew and grew. What would start off as 5 hours turned into 10, into 20, into, oh my God, this is a full-time thing. How am I going to keep my day job and still keep this company going? There's not enough hours in the day. All right, let me get some help. I got somebody to help me. We switch the hours up. And it's like, oh man, I got an employee. Jeez.
Right.
Things are changing fast. And, just kept going at it and at it and at it. And a real big there was two things that happened. There were big turning points. One was me getting into the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program. And that in of itself let me believe in me. Hurt my feelings something terrible. I don't know, it was like the first or second week of the program. My business mentor, coach, told me, Charles, what you have right now is an expensive hobby.
Man, okay.
I was like, oh man, she's talking about getting stabbed, but she was right. I hadn't done the time or put in the due diligence to study the craft of doing business, the tech side, but I wasn't learning the business side. And that program really helped me to start learning that side of the house and, what it took to be an entrepreneur, how to grow a business, how to do it wisely, where to take risks, the art of negotiation, how to read a balance sheet, basic accounting, all of those things. And a lot of those skills I still use today. And a lot of those people, I'm still in contact with. And that was kind of the turning point. The other one that was a big factor in it was hitting that glass ceiling. Seeing that there really wasn't a lot of other places to go where I was. I'd gotten up to be the point where I was a program manager. I had a team of people working for me. And it's like, what's next? I could have gone up to like a PMO or something like that. But it really didn't feel like there was that many more progressions or there was going to be that many more challenges. As many people had, there was that day where things weren't going too well. And I was kind of like, you know what? Kids are grown. It's like, if not now, when? And,
Hmm.
and that's when I went full time and haven't looked back. Now, has it been easy? Heck no. Have been times I want to quit? Probably at least once or twice a week.
Got you. Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's not fun all the time. We romanticize being an entrepreneur, but what you see on Instagram, on TV is not it. You know, it's late nights, early mornings, uncertainty, wondering if these thoughts that you have, is anybody going to buy it? Is it going to work out? And you just got to kind of push through it. I've had great times and I've had lean times, and that's all part of the process. If you talk to most of the people that you see on TV that have gotten to the highest echelon of it, how many of them have lived in their car at some point? A lot. It's a learning process. They took a chance, and that particular chance didn't work out. But guess what? It didn't stop. They took another chance later on. And that second chance, or maybe the third chance that they took, didn't work out. They kept at it because every time you go through it, you get a little bit better and a little bit wiser. And ultimately, they got to the point where right now, all their money is working for them. They're not really working for their money the same way they had to in the early days. And at that point, it almost just becomes a game. You're playing Monopoly, but just with real stuff.
So I always find it interesting. So you're not the first person that I've talked to that said that they hit a ceiling when it came to basically working for someone else's company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's kind of akin to you outgrowing the fish tank. It's like, I no longer feel comfortable, right? And I know I could do this either I can replicate this, I could do something different because I have, these great ideas, or, they're just, they don't see the potential, right? Now I'll go ahead and show them the potential. So for you, have you always been, because I call it like I call it what it is. It's courageous, right? To shift the risk to yourself, right? Like when you have an employer, there's some risk on their part, right? They're paying for benefits, things of that nature. They can't just fire you for no apparent reason. Most of the time, we're starting to see a lot of that happen now with AI took your job. You're like, what? Like, who's AI? Like, show them to me.
Now,
Or was it something that you grew into? Like, has it always been like, okay, I can take a leap, or was it something like, okay, I need to feel more comfortable in taking these leaps?
honestly, I think what played the biggest part in it is getting bored. I'm a firm believer for a lot of positions, you have about a 4-year life cycle, just like you do with college, right? Freshman, you're finding your way around. You don't really know much. Sophomore, year two, you're starting to find your way. Year three, you've more than gotten competent at the basics. Year four, you've mastered it. And once you get to that level of mastery in what you're doing, it's like, what do you have to still get excited about? You know, um, and it was like, okay, I'm kind of at that mastery level of what I'm doing. The things like might get frustrated. you might have a new technology, but you're doing a lot of the same stuff with the new technology that you were doing with the previous ones, especially when you get into management. You're not as hands-on keyboard. And it was like, I wasn't getting excited anymore. I didn't like going to work. I wasn't having a good time. And I was like, I need some new challenges. And I was doing this thing, and I was like, it's time. And so I think what really made me want to take the jump was seeking like a new challenge more so than just wanting to step out there and do it.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Especially if you do see it, because I think everybody perceives, like, it's going to sound way deeper than what I'm trying to say, but everybody perceives time differently, right? Like,
Hmm.
what I've noticed is, some people like get stuck in
Hmm.
a time, a decade, or like a pattern. And not saying anything's wrong with that. Like, if everyone was doing everything they wanted to do, like, it'd be chaos. You need people to be employers. You need people to be employees. That's what makes the gears turn. But what I have seen from the entrepreneurs I've had on the show, which gives me a lot of encouragement, is that they do seek challenge. They're not comfortable with not growing or not moving forward. Because what I've learned from looking at business over, the COVID years and the financial crisis years and whatever this is called right now that we're going through, is that if you don't uh, change with the times, or you don't grow, you ultimately will shrink, and your business will probably die. It's interesting to see the mind of an entrepreneur, how it calculates risk or not risk, or they
Hmm.
perceive like, this is, I could do more, I could do something better. I've worked with a gentleman in the past, and he was always thinking of the next thing, like, what are we going to do next? And he's always trying to figure out what that next thing is, because he's a consultant, right? So that's kind of his bread and butter. Like, yeah, this is booming right now, but eventually this will die or peter off. So what is the next thing we should be lining up? So it's always interesting to see, and it's definitely not for the faint of heart. Like, that's a
No,
lot.
it's not. No, but yeah, it's there is a mindset, and a part of it is liking to win, and a big part of it is being the commitment to being a lifelong learner. When you're willing to always keep learning new things and trying new things and challenging yourself, you may not even realize it, but you're building a brand of entrepreneurship in whatever you do. The difference between the entrepreneur and a lot of other people is kind of like you said, they get stuck. You get to be about 28, 29. And, you look up 20 years later and realize you're doing very similar things that you were. You may not, you stop learning new things. You stop, challenging your stuff. You stop like going on adventures, whatever adventure is to you. If adventure is going to new restaurants or, reading a new book or going to a new place, those things kind of tend to stop happening for a lot of people. But like with the lifelong learners, they do that constantly. And you meet those people, and a lot of times they're very interesting because they always have something new that they've tried or different or maybe even exotic. And it brings a lot to a conversation. And then you also find like another pool of people where what they're comfortable and they like to talk about is a lot more of the same. It's always, this year's football team or basketball team or whatever. And they're comfortable there. They like being there. And, that's what they want to do. They're not in search of that excitement or adrenaline rush or, those sort of things. And like you said, it takes all types. If everybody was always trying to do the next big thing and out there taking risks, like to be chaos. We need some people that are willing to, put in the time for stability. That stability is just as important as the innovation, because if without the stability, what are you going to build on top of? So there's a lot there.
No, this is very true. So there's two things I want to cover with the limited amount of time that we have. So I definitely want to talk about your mentorship and how you got into BIC and mentoring those students, and any other mentorship endeavors that you're doing. Plus, I consider you a mentor as well, right? Like, we've had a couple of conversations where you've put me on not only how to fix my website, which I have not done yet. This is a work in progress, but also like the behind the scenes of, getting your 8A, and how that process is kind of mucked up, for lack of a better term, right now. Um, so let's go with the mentorship before we go into your business. Little jewels about what people should be doing or how they should be doing it. So when it came to mentorship, were you a part of BIC before becoming a mentor, or were you approached to become a mentor?
BIC was kind of funny because I approached BIC and it was probably maybe like the second or third cohort that they were doing. And I was looking for a mentor, coming up in cyber, coming up in tech, even, especially in the early days. I don't very often be in a room with one, there was not a lot of people that were, and not to call anybody out, but I'm going to say that we're Black American. A lot of the first Black people that I met in tech, they ended up being Africans, that had started and working in the area. And, they're two different people. From the outside looking in, a lot of people group us together, but we do definitely have very two distinct backgrounds. And so there wasn't a lot of places where I could go to for advice that I always felt comfortable. Don't get me wrong. I had some non-Black mentors along the way that were fantastic. I had some managers along the way that I still am in touch with today. And the lessons, I don't think they even realized like the depth of the lessons that I took from them, in learning technology. But on the big side, it was, I was looking for a place to talk to people that looked like me. And they said, well, we don't have a mentor for you. I said, what? You didn't even have a mentor for you. It's like, from the people that were getting into the program, most of the people are early stage or they're career shifters. I was like, oh, okay. Well, it'd be kind of nice to be able to provide to somebody else what I didn't have. And I was terrified. Imposter syndrome is not fake. It's real. It's rampant. It's still here today. I hear about it from people all the time. And I constantly ask myself, was I ready? And I was scared of messing up, messing up somebody else's stuff. But turned out I enjoyed it. And being a mentor and being part of this program is something that I look forward to every single year. And it really brings me a lot of joy. The growth you see in people, the successes that they have, the changes that they go through, and it's fantastic. And being able to give back to, a profession and a discipline that's given so much to me. Like I said, I was not the best student in my early school days, but when I found technology, it got me excited and gave me something that made me want to, the discipline. And let me tell you, there's a lot of Friday nights after I got into tech, I was sitting at home with my CCNA and my CCNP and learning routing protocols and switching because I was fascinated by it. And wanted to put that excitement into somebody else. Or if I saw that excitement in somebody else, help them to cultivate it and to have them grow and to not have them hit that wall early. We all
Right.
are going to hit those walls at some point, but those early stages, you put in so much work to get the knowledge to do something, and it can be kind of scary and difficult the first year, 2, 1, 2, 3, when you're first out of the gate and, you're in an environment that's not familiar to you, and you're like, I'm going to navigate this. And having a place for people to come back, vent, tell about what happened, celebrate your successes, talk about their challenges, and help them to keep going is a lot of fun.
But yeah, no doubt. Like when I attended the mentor session, it was really impressive. They had a lot of really, really great questions, right? That was, an honor for me to be able to try to answer them from my perspective, right? This is how I got in. This is what I'm doing, so on and so forth. But just connecting with them afterwards, right? Because you tell people all the time, like, hey, connect with me, let me know if you have questions, etc. But typically it doesn't really happen because either the person doesn't feel like they comfortable to approach you, or they may have done it in the past. They just think you're blowing them off, right? Like, oh yeah, I'll connect with you, and they never do. But surprisingly, a lot of the members of that cohort did reach out to me via LinkedIn to connect, and I was very impressed. I was like, okay, these are people who are really passionate and want to succeed.
These
Um,
kids are hungry. They're going for it, and they will ask the questions because they want the knowledge. They're amazing.
Yeah, it was truly, and it was a fun experience, right? They clapped me out. I was like, I've never been clapped out before, especially not in a virtual environment. I was like, it was nice, right? Like, it was nice of them to do that. So I definitely look forward to any opportunity I can help out in the future. But I'm just glad to see it, right? Between Blacks in Cyber and Weesis and Black Girls Hack, and there's so many of these communities, right? There's countless more, but just seeing that, there's a community for just about everybody to grow in cyber, even though it feels daunting right now. But I think we'll get past that again as the career field matures. So when it comes to business, right? So you've been a businessman for probably a decade or close to a decade by now.
Close to it, about 8 years, 9
Yeah.
years.
So that longevity, right? Like I've always heard you have to get past year 5. That's when you can start to be like, okay, I feel more comfortable, quote unquote comfortable, in being my own boss. So what allows you to have that longevity, and what do you think people get wrong off of the bat? I'm asking for a friend, not myself, but really it's for myself.
I think what people get wrong off the bat the most is that I want to go into business for myself to have more free time. It's really just the opposite, because uncertainty creates a sense of urgency. That free time is okay. Maybe I don't have anything to do, but maybe I should be doing something now. Or the competition is doing something now. The same way an athlete is like, oh, you know what? The other dude is still training. I need to keep going too. On those sort of things. I think the level of commitment that it takes to be successful is largely underrated, and the changes that you're going to go through. Um, you know, People don't talk about the hard parts. You hear the story, yeah, started a company, worked at it for a couple of years, we kind of grassrooted everything. We grew it up into this state, and then Google came around and they bought us out, and now we're working in all the stuff that happened between the time that they started and Google bought them out. There was fun times, I'm sure, but there's a lot of hard ones too. You're gonna lose friends along the way. You're gonna make people angry along the way. You're going to have times of isolation along the way, because you need to focus on what you're doing to be able to get, to keep the business going. And you're not going to be able to do that Friday or Saturday night with your friends all the time. And so that's the hard part that people don't talk about. Your community changes. Your friends start becoming other business owners, because they're the people that you're seeing all the time at events or, whatnot. And I think one thing that people really underestimate too is, business isn't about your idea. Like, the ideas for the next great thing, they're all over the place. Everybody's got, at least 3 or 4 of them, but it's the execution of them. And the execution on those ideas takes discipline, takes commitment, it takes time, it takes perseverance, it takes a willingness to put yourself out there. We talk about the comfort zone. I'm a natural introvert. I don't like talking to people. I don't like people, but I have to get out there and talk to people, and meet new people, or I don't get any more customers, plain and simple. But not just in getting customers, I don't get any new energy back into me either if I'm not out there meeting people. It's just, I'm the only one running on the hamster wheel. So, and I'm still evolving in that process. I get nervous going to networking meetings and those sort of things to this day, but I also have a lot of fun at it. And there's always from networking events about 10 minutes I spend in the car after I leave and do like, you know what? That one went pretty well. I met 4 or 5 people. I got some good leads.
Right.
I had a few laughs. It was cool. And then there's some in there. It's like, yo, I didn't fit in that room. That room was weird. It's just the vibe that was a little bit off. But that's gonna happen. That's gonna happen anywhere you go. You go to one place and you fit right in. You go to another place, you don't. But you keep trying, finding new places, and you get better and better at navigating those spaces and talking to people that you don't know. As everybody's kind of in the same boat. Nobody has this figured out. Everybody is looking to learn, and everybody's out here trying new things. And most people are out here to help you. A misconception is the cutthroatness. You can steal my idea, right? I don't care. You can have it. I'll tell you how to do it, because chances are you're not, right? You're not going to execute on it. You're not going to take it to the next level. You're not going to put your soul into it. Like, how many hamburger places are there out there right now? There's a ton of them. They're on every corner, and somehow they all manage to survive. It's not that you're selling hamburgers that's important. It's the special part of you that you put into it that is going to make your your business special. That's going to make it survive. That's going to make it stand out. That's going to draw people to you. And once you're willing to start to put that part of you in there and really like kind of like commingle yourself with whatever you're doing, you're going to find your tribe. Things are going to start taking off, and you're going to find a place that you belong. And hopefully you'll find peace and success at that point. And, your endeavors will really start taking off.
So what is next? What's your next initiative or endeavor that you can share?
That I can share? What is next? One thing that was on the table that I'm kind of in my infancy with doing right now is real estate investing. We'll be in the middle of turning over my first house, and that's been an adventure and a learning experience in of itself. The next one that I really want to do is live abroad. There's a lot of places that are different than the U.S. and living someplace is a lot different than visiting someplace.
Right.
I visited, a number of places outside the country, Europe, the Caribbean, Mexico, sort of places, but I haven't lived outside the country before. I haven't had the experience of, maybe not everybody speaks English. Maybe, the cultural rules of interacting are different. And I think that's a big key in, one, knowing yourself, and one, appreciating the world around you. Not everybody's the same, but you go to some of these other places and they have a different sense of peace, I think, than we do here. Money's great. Money's fun. It's fun to have. It's fun to spend, all those sort of things. But when you start seeing the folks that are really happy, it's not the money. It's their family. It's their friends. It's the passion that they have for what they're doing. And what ends up happening a lot of times is then the money follows that. And we spend a lot of time in the U.S. We chase the money.
That's very true. Yeah. It's the culture, right? So all those who surround you, you always feel the hustle, but especially if you come from a more urban environment, like you always see people constantly moving around, doing things, trying to grow. It just has, that hustle mentality all around you. But like you said, like if you go down to the Caribbean or the outskirts, like Costa Rica, Belize, some of those areas, like it's very much the opposite. They still have entrepreneurs, right? They still have people who have businesses and things of that nature. But like when I lived in Sicily, they would take a whole month off.
Yes, sir.
It's like the whole town shuts down. So it is a different mentality. So I would like to also get out of here at some point. But
what I want to say too,
that'll be a debate between me and my wife
that we were talking about earlier that aren't necessarily evolving and changing it as much. A lot of times they embrace a lot of some of that culture as well, and that's what causes them to do that. They're at peace with where they are. They're not looking for the next big thing, so to speak. And so at the same time, there's a lot to be said for it.
Absolutely. But yeah, go ahead, move somewhere, scout some places out, try to buy some land, get down there too. That's my dream once all the kids are out of college. It's like, let's get out of here, go somewhere where our money stretches a little bit further. Yep. That's early retirement. If our investments line up and all that good stuff. But let's see how that looks the next almost decade.
Yeah, there's one gentleman in Vic. I think he's been living in Asia Pac for about the past 10, 12 years.
Wow.
He comes back to visit at this point. Like, out there is home.
Right.
It's fantastic. He's got the best of both worlds. A Zoom call, you're back in the US, and then you step out the door, you're in Thailand. Like, dang, well, I think he's got a great thing going. And I think it's an experience. The United States is a pretty big place. And, you go to Europe, Africa, you still have pretty large countries too, but the countries aren't as big. So they cross country borders like we cross states. And so when you cross those country borders over there, you get bigger cultural changes than we do when we cross state borders here. It's still the United States, and things are still pretty similar, from place to place. Mm-hmm. And so they get a much more focused dose of different cultures, and ours is a little bit more, and it takes us a little bit longer to be able to accept and, understand some of those other places. But, once you immerse yourself in it, hey, there's no turning back.
Right. Exactly. So before I let you go, right, I always like to land the plane, so to speak, on what you're doing outside of your work, your mentorship? What are you doing basically for you, if anything, right? Because I know a lot of mentors like that is their time off, is doing something, for someone else. But is there any hobbies or anything that you get into when you do have some free time?
Oh, what do I get into when I have some free time? Right now, I'm CrossFitting. I did it a long time ago, got away from it for a while, did a few other things in between, did some MMA, did some Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, had a lot of fun with the combat sports, boxed again for a little bit. And now I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser, don't like to get hit in the head as much. So, got back into CrossFit and more just health in general. Being outside, I love going for walks with my dog. I burn up Audible books like it's nobody's business. We'll go out there, a couple hours will pass. I was like, hey, geez, I went through a book in like 3 days. Oh my goodness. And watching my kids like evolve in this next section of their life. My daughter graduated from college last year. My son's
Oh,
a
awesome.
freshman this year. And it's like, wow, like these little people that I saw grow up, they're turning into little adults and they're having
Right.
their own thoughts and own ideas and their own journeys that they're going on. And I'm lucky they still like to talk to me about it and love spending time doing that. And really, the BIC is a program, but it's not the end of the mentorship or the relationship. A lot of the people that have gone, they've been my mentees along the way. I affectionately call them the Rush Mafia. We're going to have t-shirts and hats soon, so be on the lookout. You're going to be able to find each other. Some of y'all that don't know each other at these conferences a little bit more easily. So, but that's still fun. They become like a second family and people that I interact with on a regular. So,
No, that's amazing. Again, like you're definitely someone to aspire to be and to look after, right? Like most of the people I have on the show, there's nobody I've ever had on like, man, that was a dirtbag. But we do have a lot in common, and we do connect a lot more because I am learning a lot from you, and sharing ideas and what have
vice
you.
versa.
Yeah, so it's definitely awesome. And again, you put me. I was like, I forget who I was talking to. It was either you or
Chad.
oh man, Chad. Yes, it might have been Chad. Where I was like, "Hey, I've been trying to get in Bic to talk to somebody for song." And somebody was like, "Congratulations, you've been promoted." I was like,
That's
"That's
how we do,
awesome." So yeah, it's definitely a great conversation, a great time. You have either inspired them to go along this path, or you inspired them to keep going, right? Because we all need that at some point. I know many a cybersecurity professional who has thought to do something different, right? But they stuck it out, and now they're experiencing a great career. So definitely, everybody continue to check us out. Definitely follow Charles Rush. Where's the best way to get in contact with you and then to watch you along your journey?
The best way is probably my LinkedIn account, Charles Rush the third. Um, I'm terrible about posting, life events and stuff on social media. I don't take a lot of pictures. I probably need to do more of that along the way. The best way to find out if you want to know what I'm up to, just reach out. Always down for a phone call. Hit me up on LinkedIn. We'll make some time. We'll connect, have a few laughs, and it'll be fun.
No doubt. And then to check us out. We are a weekly podcast. We're on WDJY 99.1 FM, Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard over there in the Atlanta metro area, as well as your podcast platforms of choice. So please subscribe. We're now video on YouTube as well as Spotify. You can find me at RyanWilliamsSenior.com. That's where I post all of my branded stuff on my projects. You can also go to ramcyber.io. So it's one day I aspire to be like the great Charles Rush III over here. And be an entrepreneur. But as well as you can pick up the book, The Other Side of the Firewall, named after the podcast. You can find that at theothersideofthefirewall.com. Stay safe, stay secure.